All right, University of Memphis.
Good morning. I'm Tracy Robinson, and I am the Director of Innovative Academic Initiatives at the University of Memphis, and I am also serving as Project Director for our collaborative, which is Growing Relational and Occupational Wealth in West Tennessee Households. I am joined today by Dr. Dick Irwin, my boss, but also the Executive Dean of U of M Global Academic Innovation and the College of Professional and Liberal Studies. And we will hopefully also be joined in a moment by Kyla Guyette, who is parking. She is President of Workforce Mid-South and the Executive Director of the Greater Memphis Local Workforce Board. A few others of our team are in the audience, and we have others who are joining the live stream, so hello to our friends virtually. We are delighted to be here, and thank you to the board for giving us this opportunity to be a part of this meaningful work. And meaningful work is not just a phrase for us. It is what we truly feel about this project. We learned a lot in the planning phase, and what I hope that you hear from us today is our desire and commitment to be a part of this work, because we have that. Before we dive into the slides, I would ask you to put to the side your traditional image of the University of Memphis and students pursuing bachelor's and advanced degrees. This program resides in our Academic Innovation Division, specifically in Professional and Continuing Education, which I oversee. That is a space where we have been the most innovative. We have been able to respond to community and employer needs in a way that we can't always do in the credit space. And so we have also been very strategic in designing activities and programming that has value now, but can also have value in the future, specifically credit for prior learning. When our participants want to come back to earn a degree, they will have value in the activities that they do with us. So our collaborative has really worked continuously since last fall, when we have built this robust ecosystem that you'll hear about in our presentation. Where West Tennessee families can spring from that safety net into a life of thriving. What you see reflected in our mission and vision statement is our commitment that our families have voice and choice in what they do and how we will help them. We are serving the 21 counties of West Tennessee, reflected in the map on the right-hand side. And that is really part of our value proposition, is our regional approach. It is a holistic ecosystem that is made up of us, the innovative education and training partner, along with workforce development expertise, along with community support networks. We believe this has really will give us the opportunity to leverage resources in a way that has never been done in the state of Tennessee previously, in a way to alleviate these barriers that our students face, or not students, sorry, participants face. We took a research-based approach to our collaborative and started by doing one-on-one surveys as well as focus groups throughout our region. We reached almost 500 families in this approach. We had a representative family from every county in West Tennessee so that we could really understand what the problem is. And that is that families have too many barriers that they cannot overcome to get to economic sustainability. Specifically in childcare, a big issue for us in West Tennessee is non-traditional childcare that's not just the 8 to 4:30 or 8 to 5. Also transportation, and then also employment and training that leads to a high quality credential. That's really important as well. We were lucky to have great partners in this work. We also found from our survey that families didn't feel like they had a voice, a trusted partner that could elevate their concerns to a level that it needed to be. One of our partners, KUC Donald, who's the Executive Director of Economic Opportunities, will talk about this in this little brief video.
We started participating as a community organization to help conduct surveys, to really give some insight, to reshape the process of TANF for TANF recipients and TANF eligible recipients. We've been doing a lot of meetings to look at our assessments, conducting focus groups to really get information from the people who it impacts the most and really add their value and insight to our planning stages.
Excuse me, you guys, I had a parking issue. So I'm sure you know about that. So we want to talk about the population that we're going to serve. A little different than a lot of the presentations, we're actually planning to serve all of West Tennessee's Grand Region. So that includes all of the American Job Centers that we currently have. We have 9 official American Job Centers throughout West Tennessee that are already established, but we have 100 access points already established throughout our region. We're also going to use the University of Memphis campuses. So it's really about broadening the access points to the places where folks can get services and making sure we can do something that is replicable throughout the region. Okay, so go backward. Do you know how to go backward? Okay, so our regional approach is really what makes us different. Rather than focusing on one community, we really had the idea of leveraging the resources that exist. We already fund a very large workforce development system. We fund several systems that do duplicative work. So we really want to bring all of that together in a regional approach to figure out how do we best leverage all of those resources together to make sure folks are able to get a full wraparound of what they do. So for us, the American Job Centers, we're very job focused. We are, let's meet a need, let's get you to work. We oftentimes find that there is other things that are keeping folks from employment that we don't necessarily touch. So we are trying to have a regional approach for all of this to best serve folks that come into our centers and interact with us. Grading and leveraging resources, I will say Commissioner Carter has one slide that looks like a map that all of you have seen. It's probably my favorite slide in all of history because it really tells you the story of what folks are trying to navigate. And so we really want to bring all of that stuff that exists into a workable plan for folks. So non-traditional childcare. In all of our counties, childcare was the #1 reason folks said that they could not connect to employment. In 10 of our counties, there are less than 10 providers that actually provide childcare, approved childcare providers. We have lots of companies. If you think of FedEx, you think of the hospital systems, they're 24-hour-a-day employers. Yet we have childcare that runs from 7 to 5 or 7 to 6. So it makes a lot of those options unavailable to folks. So we really are focusing on increasing the capacity, the number of approved providers, more importantly, the number of slots, and then making sure they have non-traditional hours. Training and capital for micro business, I think, is one of the coolest things that we're really looking at. Building someone into sustainable employment and ongoing economic mobility is one thing. Building generational wealth is another. Starting a business, being able to own a business is probably the single best way that you can, one, take charge of your own future, but pass something on to your family. We also want to work through work readiness. That was something that every employer for sure told us, but lots of our respondents also talked about their need for increased work readiness. We offer some of that in the American Job Center, but it really needs to be a much more robust, much more in-depth experience. We also want to talk about transportation in a different way. So we can do bus passes and gas cards all day, right? But if you don't have a car, that's not really helpful. And if you live anywhere outside of Memphis, the very city of Memphis, that's not helpful either. There is not public transportation. So we want to help people get their own cars. So reimbursement of car notes to help folks have a long-term solution to their transportation issues. And then what's the best is we have the University of Memphis with their expertise to have a care advocacy team and really talk through how do we best leverage all of the expertise and resources to help these individuals. Okay, so of course, how do we fit with the TANF purposes? For sure, I think our most important one is to end the dependence of needy parents by promoting job preparation, work, and marriage. If you know anything about the American Job Centers, we promote work, we promote getting into that place and being able to lift yourself out of poverty and economic mobility. So we want to make sure we are promoting job preparation, work, and marriage, and providing assistance so that children could be cared for in their home. So that's part of the non-traditional childcare that we're talking about and expanding our access to that. So our universal outcomes, really quickly, increase economic status and stability. That's number one. Decrease psychological stress. We wanna help folks work through that plan and increase family engagement. We wanna make sure outside of what we traditionally do, we are able to braid in that 2-gen approach of making sure we're serving the entire family. This is what it looks like. So we have it as a circle on purpose because it really wraps around the family. And you can start up top with the University of Memphis. They're the backbone organization. They bring to the table more expertise than we can imagine, research, data, they have colleges, they have centers of excellence, all of these folks that specialize in all of these things that we are lacking. So the University of Memphis is going to serve in that capacity. They, of course, have the capacity to handle the fiscal resources and responsibility, but more important to that, they kind of are the ringmaster of the circus. Community organizations. We all know that when we serve folks in poverty, they tend to have a lack of trust for programs and providers. So we're working with community networks that already have earned that level of stability within their community. They already are deeply entrenched and already are serving folks, just need to be able to do it in a more robust way. The workforce boards. So like I said, we have a network of established locations throughout West Tennessee. We are deeply embedded into those communities. We work with employers, we work with job seekers. We are there to fill that need and connect folks to employment. Employers, a little different than some other presentations. We have employers that have bought in a very meaningful way. Not only will I take you and potentially hire you, they've signed on to say, we are going to hire graduates of this program at this dollar amount, I will take them. So they are ready to put their hiring where their mouth is and say, we guarantee jobs for folks. Also with employers, they've committed to continuous learning. So once you get a job at FedEx or Nike, you're able to continue to learn through that process. And then we have our care advocacy team. That's the network of providers that are there to make sure all of those other resources are wrapping around a family. This will tell you, American Job Center sees a person, here's their job, what they need. I think you need a care resource coordinator. She's gonna say, okay. She calls in the troops, right? Those are the types of folks that are gonna come in and wrap around a family when a need is identified to say, we are all here to serve this particular family.
With the short time that we have left, I get to address the outcomes. And I've heard several questions today about what will the outcomes be. On the left-hand side, we've illustrated kind of our bold ambitions in terms of how we are going to upskill this region, how we are going to alleviate barriers, and how we thank you, are going to provide family enrichment resources. You can see that we have a great emphasis on addressing the uncredentialed nature of West Tennessee. That's a part of our mission, and we have the resources to be able to do that. The results of this are shown on the right-hand side. over $500 million in the next 10 years will be realized in an increase in the state's GDP. It will also result in a savings of $330 million over the next decade in governmental spending. So we feel that this is ambitious, but on the same hand, realistic in terms of what we can achieve. With regard to our budget, we intentionally set aside from the get-go more than 50%, $13 million that will go directly to participants. In when they hit performance-based metrics, they will be receiving a stipend during the work readiness program and their training. And half of the professional services will go towards the embedded care advocacy teams that Kyla mentioned. And I noticed that we're out of time, and maybe we can just put those up there on display. Some of the resources that the university will provide, I didn't get a chance to get to, and would welcome a question about what does the University of Memphis bring to the table. And also, did you hear that we have WIOA funding? Anyway, please, it's time for questions, and we want to address your program.
Hey, Dick, how are you? Thank you all. Emily House from THEC. Two quick questions. The first is about the vehicle, the car note subsidy. I think that's a really interesting idea, only because thinking about higher ed kind of writ large, we often talk about transportation constraints in a way that you just described. So can you speak a little bit more about that? And then, Dick, I actually did have a question about the role of Memphis before you even said that. So that was not a plant for everybody else.
Yeah, so we really looked at it from the lens of lack of public transportation anywhere outside the city of Memphis. Even if you were in Shelby County, you don't necessarily have access to that. So we want to partner with banks, and we do have banks that are willing to do that for low interest loans. You normally may not qualify for this car loan, particularly with your credit score or things that are happening, but we are going to make sure that you're able to get that loan, and then we are going to have a $200 reimbursement of that car note every month for 6 months to make sure that we can get you on track to be able to do that. There's also a way for folks to earn incentives throughout completing the academy, and so that nice check that you get out of the academy would make a really good down payment on a car.
So to Commissioner Piercy's question to the previous group, what does the accountability look like there? I mean, I know by virtue of a car note, you can't not pay the car note necessarily. That creates bigger problems. But are there accountability metrics in place when you talk about all this direct to human funding?
Sure. So there's always, in most of our program funding, we have to, one, have an eligibility letter from an employer, a commitment to hire to say, you have a job, you start on this day at this wage rate before you're going to get a car loan. And then we want to make sure that we are doing timesheet check-ins to make sure you are showing up, you are going to go to work, because if you're not, we're not going to continue to pay the car note.
Great, thank you. And then what is the role of Memphis in a lot of this? I'm looking at this here for everybody behind me, where it points toward training, toward an associate's degree, toward a bachelor's degree, and clearly that's where my brain goes when we think about degree production and my interactions with you, Dick, and with Memphis. What does that look like, and then what does Memphis's role look like more broadly?
So I do want to draw attention, thank you, to a number of items that are in the packet that we distributed. First and foremost, as soon as someone becomes a member of the growth program, they automatically get a University of Memphis ID. And we think that that's got some value. But that also enables them to have access to a variety of support resources throughout the university, whether that's 16,000 LinkedIn learning modules that they can use to upskill, some that directly prepare for a credential, whether that's other student support services, whether that could be being a Tiger and being a part of the athletic program, as well as opportunities for their children. Our connectivity to the schools throughout the region, whether that's through Peer Power, Upward Bound, or dual enrollment programs, are going to engage their children. Our care advocacy team, who will be visiting with them on a regular basis, once every 2 weeks, in the house or virtually, will be working with those children to map out an educational plan so that they see a path to credential and degrees, just like we're trying to instill in their parents. As also the letter that President Hargrave supplied for us to insert in your packet indicated that he envisions that faculty, staff, and students from across campus are going to want to get involved in this program through research, service, and other learning opportunities. Our marketing communications program is going to support us with publicity, helping us generate publicity, and with our digital marketing campaign, which will be launched with an endorsement from Penny Hardaway, who's kind of well known in West Tennessee. And lastly, our development office has already introduced me to donors who want to help with the vehicle support program that Kyle has mentioned in helping offset some of those barriers. So we have departments throughout the campus and a lot of opportunity. And Tracy mentioned ELC, which is the card that you were flashing. That's our conversion. The lifetime value of a training expenditure is hard to calculate, because it will not only lead to a credential that leads to a higher paying job, but at the appropriate time, they may use that, and we will convert that to experiential learning credit that's applicable to an associate's degree at one of our partner institutions, as well as a bachelor's degree when the appropriate time arises. So there's an extension. Maximizing the expenditure over and over again will help the cost efficiency of our program. Yes, sir.
Just, here you go. You want mine? You got to answer. Somebody go ahead. I think the care teams are essential, but I'm having a hard time. That was a wonderful graphic, by the way, of people clapping their hands and rolling their all that. But that was a lot of people. I can see that for 25 people. I can maybe even see care teams for 50 people. I'm having a real hard time getting my head around providing care teams for 2,000 people. So, I mean,
Perfect.
There may not be that many students at UM who could help with that. So
Well, you raise a great point, because students will be involved, and each care advocacy team will consist of folks from Kyla's staff, our trained care coordinators, as well as student interns and community volunteers that are typically on their path to healthcare support, looking for licensure hours. And so we have boiled it down to a 10-to-1 ratio, which means that's where the biweekly contact comes in, and we consider that people are going to cycle out and others are going to cycle in to address the volume that we've put in the outcomes. So we really have put a lot of thought into how we can ensure that there is, we maintain a reasonable ratio and help people through that cycle.
And I will say, through the American Job Centers, we also already have a network of 100 community partners that have their capacity as well to wrap around folks.
Mine's more of a comment than a question. First of all, Kyla, deep breathing exercises that you did was
Right?
very impressive. And secondly, outside of this grant, way to go on your ELC, University of Memphis. That is, in my role of labor and workforce development, that is innovative in and of itself, outside of even this, something that I'm going to show to a lot of other universities as well. So way to go on that. Congratulations. That's very, very forward thinking and much, much needed from a university level.
Well, thank you. We'd be happy to help other folks. When Tracy and I discovered that program a few years ago, about 30 people a year took advantage of it. Last year we had 400 people save themselves $1 million, and a lot of times towards a degree. So we try to leverage that as often as possible.
And if you happen to be looking at social media today and Twitter, if you look up the company InStride, actually features a story of one of our students who got 30 hours of credit for prior learning, and her journey and what it meant for her to be able to graduate this semester. It's a great video. InStride is the company name.
You spoke a little bit about the innovation in response to Commissioner McCourt's question. Could you tell me a little bit more about what is innovative writ large about this approach and why?
Yeah, so a couple of things. For us, really the innovation lies in our regionality. There is not that happening. Much to your slide that you talk about, there is a maze of opportunities that are out there that are nearly impossible for folks to navigate on their own. And so we are really looking through the American Job Centers to be those lighthouses in poverty to say we will bring together all of those resources for you. We will wrap all of those resources around you. And even better than that, you can not only get trained for your job, you can get early learning earned or learning credits to go to the University of Memphis and get a degree. We want to make sure you can do that. But I think cool about it is the LIFE program and some of the other programs that they have developed with employers. So for those programs, I'll let Dr. Irwin talk about it. But once you sign on with those employers, they are paying for you to keep you going to school. They are paying for you to keep moving up that ladder of economic mobility. So our employers are really invested into this. We're putting some onus onto employers. We're also having employers sign up to be employers of choice. And that means going through poverty simulations. That is talking through what it looks like to be someone in poverty. What does that feel like? You know, we've had a kind of well-known employers that have come to us and said, people can't even show up 20 minutes on time for a job interview. Do you know they took 3 buses to get there? Do you know they came from a house with no electricity? All of that kind of stuff. We want employers to really understand who our customer is and what they are trying to accomplish. So that's a little different, that we have employers really at the table bought in to say, we want to be part of the solution long term. And then it's really all about the innovative ways that we're going to help with supportive services. Having childcare at major employers, having childcare facilities in our American Job Centers. It's not an American Job Center, it's a Mid-South Opportunity Center, don't get nervous. But it's a really large community center that will also have childcare there for folks that want to participate in training. So we're trying to meet folks where they are and be as innovative as we can about how do we meet those needs. Because obviously paying for childcare with incentives or giving bus passes and gas cards hasn't really worked for us. So we've got to get as innovative as we can. And I also think the microloans are really important. Helping folks get access to a $50,000 loan to start a business can change families. That doesn't just change a person. That's able to change the trajectory of a family.
Hey, Lisa Piercy, Department of Health. Tell us a little bit more about your non-traditional childcare. You said providing that care in the home or with relatives. How do you plan to source and fund that?
So one thing that we have on our campus is a great early childhood and learning program. And we know that DHS also has a lot of great training and network support for individuals. So we plan to braid all of that together and really provide this support network for people in our region to utilize those resources and then open their own family home care centers or whatever their desire may be. They may also go into that micro business training as well. But we know there are great resources out there, but there's something blocking people from taking advantage of that. And so we believe that's this wraparound network. We'll have mentors assigned to them that have successful centers within our region, so that they have a person that they can call when they have a problem or can't figure something out. More robust in that support way.
Who is the we? You said we're going to wrap these services around. We're going to make people do things they've never done before to work together. We're going to. Who's the we?
It's our collaborative. It is the conversations that we have been able to have during this planning stage. It's our community organizations. It's the University of Memphis. It's the workforce boards. It is getting the experts on our campus, the University of Memphis campus, to the table. There, in 20 years in higher education and in the Memphis area, I've never seen more people sitting down at the table talking about these issues, and more importantly, the solutions to the issues. And also, very importantly, is the voice of our participants, our families. We'll have a community advisory board. We'll have an industry advisory board made up of employers. They've already committed to that. So it is a collective and an ecosystem that I've never seen in the West Tennessee area.
Or east.
If there's not another question, I would really like to show this one last quick video. We were able to have a former TNF recipient who worked with us during our planning stage, and she really says a lot of great things about the way that we work together, and I think it's important for you to hear it.
First, I am a customer, so I understand what it's like to have hardship, to not have the things needed to take care of your family, because no one plans for that to happen. But we also know that situations occur. Generational practices are passed. So working with the University of Memphis has assured me that the next group of TANF recipients in low-income families will have the resources needed. Over the past 12, 15 years, but the University of Memphis has outlined a process that will ensure that a lot of our customers have the tools and resources needed to not repeat services. First,
So we want to thank you for this opportunity to share growth and share our program and potentially have an opportunity to be a part of the pilot program and see how we can change lives and impact families in